has an organization called Vocal Authority. She is a vocal coach. She's worked with performers, so no pressure to all of you either. But she wants to help bring expert voice training to business professionals who want to expand their clear, articulate, expressive speaking voice. How did I do? Okay. All right. So here we go.
Thank you so much, Cecilia, and thank you all for having me here today. I have a quick story to share before I start. When I first came to 1 Million Cups, not knowing anything about the organization, a friend just said, "Oh my gosh, you need to come." And what I observed at my first meeting was a tapestry of diversity in this group. Very young and excited and new and fresh, to mature and seasoned and trying something new in the last chapter of our professional career. I saw ethnic diversity, style diversity, and it said to me that this is a tapestry of what our society should look like when we engage in conversation. So I'm so excited to be here today to share my passion with you all. I am, as Cecilia said, Rena Cook, and I am the owner, principal, founder, I'm not sure what they call themselves, of Vocal Authority. And full disclosure, I am a voice nerd. I geek out on all things that have to do with the voice. And as I began studying the voice, I realized that there are many, many wonderful things to become obsessed about, even down to what is the position of my tongue on the vowel ah. And my fellow voice nerds and I can talk about the fine-tuning of the tongue until 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm very excited to share some of this work with you today. I come from a theater background. I started life as a singer, actor, dancer, and thought that that was fully going to be my life until in college you have to take the obligatory directing class. You direct a play. And I went, oh, directing is infinitely more fun than acting. When you're an actress in a play or any part of a work of art, you see the art through the blinders of your role. When you direct, you take the blinders off, you step back, and you see the whole thing. And not only do you see the whole thing, but you had a part in crafting that. And so it was at that point, as a young artist, as a young adult, that I said, oh, singing, acting, dancing out, directing and teaching in. When I was an actress, I was a neurotic child. When I became a teacher-director, I became an adult. And I rather like my adult better than my neurotic child. So that gave me the career path that I have been on ever since. I taught high school theater. And then I moved to higher education and became a higher education actor trainer. And about 2 decades into that, I started becoming more and more obsessed with the speaking voice. And it became my belief that if an actor's voice is not working, nothing else they do will matter. The voice is everything. Take that a step further, the connection to breath, which is the connection to voice, is everything. So at the age of 50, I quit my job, I sold my house, I went to London for a year to study voice at the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama, the finest training program in the world for what it was I wanted to do. You know, if I'm going to say I'm a voice trainer, I want to really know what I'm doing. And of course, that year in London completely blew my head off and changed the way I view the teaching of actors. And at that point, I realized that what I do to help actors be expressive, dynamic, clear, and connected has incredibly strong application to the general population, to professionals, to business people, to anybody who senses that they need to be, for whatever reason, better communicators. So the work that I used in training actors, I now use with business professionals. The things that I have dropped off is rolling on the floor, which actors like to do, and I find that business professionals, by and large, don't like to roll on the floor. However, someone who knows. However, many of the same techniques apply. Now, the voice is not just I like public speaking or I don't like public speaking. The voice is made up of several very complicated systems in the body that need to synchronize and organize together. And so I break down the work by systems. We do work with releasing tension in the body because tension murders voice. Tension anywhere in the body murders voice. And then we look at alignment to see how natural alignment facilitates voice and how poor alignment can actually hurt your voice. I call this my denial. I'm not worthy. I don't belong in front of a group of people. And then there's the bluff, the alignment that says, hey, I got this covered. Yeah, you can't touch me. And not only that, but I'm too sexy for my shirt. And I call that bluff. And both denial and bluff do not serve the authentic voice. And then, of course, there's breath and the props that I handed out to you we are going to be using in a moment to give you a little insight into how the breath for speech works. And then we deal with resonance, which is the mouth, the space in the mouth that is our resonating chamber that amplifies and sends the sound out into the space. And then articulation. What are articulators? Lips, teeth, and tongue. How do they affect in positive ways and how do they affect in negative ways our sound? And finally, the expressive voice. How can I use my voice in ways that will be compelling and engaging and exciting and thrilling? And we all want to do all of those things. How many of you absolutely love to hear your own voice on a recording? Raise your hand. Oh, look at that. No one raised their hand. How many of you, when you first heard yourself recorded, you said, oh my God, I don't sound like that? Yeah, raise your hand. Yes, I know. Fess up. We hear our own voice differently than other people because we hear it in the cave of our bodies. We also don't hear it objectively in the way that when it's disassociated from our bodies and coming from a microphone, we hear the flaws. And every problem that you have with your voice, there is a technique, an exercise, a strategy, a way of thinking about it that will solve that problem. Now, the kind of people who come to me for help say things like, I got a review from my supervisor that says I can't be heard and understood in meetings. This same person also said, someone came up to me and said, you really know a lot more about this than I gave you credit for. Why is that? Well, he was in denial. Physically and vocally, he couldn't speak up. He was a tall man who got tall before everybody else in his class got tall. And some of you can relate. And so you make yourself small from a very early age. And that makes your voice small. And this also then reflects in your personality and makes your personality feel small. And when I encouraged him to own his height and to own his breath and to open his mouth, the sound that came out was astounding. He had the equipment of an incredible speaker. I also had clients who come to me. This is a phone conversation. She says, if one more person tells me I talk like Reba McEntire, I'm going to die. Well, I thought that her dialect was charming. She thought it did not reflect who she was on the inside. Her dialect was not reflecting who she wanted to show to the world. And I helped her with that. I also work with an attorney that I've been working with for over a year who came to me and didn't understand why she wasn't getting the response from the jury. She says, I'm smart. I write beautiful openings and closings. I don't understand why I don't win. So I watched her work. I said, let me come and watch you work. Well, she was in bluff, like so many women are who want to compete in what has typically been a male-dominated world. And so she was pressing really hard and using a lot of energy and tension in her mouth as she chewed out her thoughts. Well, for the last year, we've been working on relaxing and releasing tension and finding power in the breath instead of power in the face. Those are the kind of people that I like to work with. I work with individuals one-on-one, and I structure the curriculum, our course of study, based on what they need. Yeah. And I work with small groups, and I find out kind of what are some of the issues and questions that you've had or you've been told. And then I structure the group work based around what I've heard and what might be needed. And then I also do keynote addresses talking about a range of subjects from empowering women's voices, the expressive litigator, taming performance anxiety, those kinds of topics that kind of fall under my purview. What I'd like to do today with you is give you an idea of how I might work, because I think when I step away from public speaking, which we all kind of have a model of what public speaking training is like, yeah, but voice training is different. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about the breath, and then I'll show you what the straws and the balloons are for. Oh, Cecilia is going to give straws and balloons to the people who arrived a little later. Breath is the single most important factor in empowering your voice. Breath is sound. Let me repeat that. Breath is human speech sound. So if I don't have enough breath, I don't have enough sound. Let me show you what I sound like on insufficient air. Hello, my name is Rena Cook, and I'm trying to speak to you on no breath. Hello, my name is Rena Cook, and I just took a full breath. I adjusted nothing except the amount of airflow that is going past my vocal folds. Yeah? So the other thing that I tell people in the first time we encounter breath is that breath for speaking is different than breath for sustaining life. You all do that part pretty darn well. Your presence here is testimony to that. But breath for speech is different. It's more deliberate, it's a little more athletic, it's deeper, and it's a little bit more managed. I don't say controlled because that implies effort. We manage our breath in a different way when we speak. Now, the very first thing that I do talking about breath is start with the straw. So if you wouldn't mind, just hold up the straw gently between your fingers. And we are going to exhale on a 4 count through the straw, and then we are going to inhale on a 4 count through the straw. Now, if any of you have anxiety disorder associated with breath, you can do this. I have never lost a student or a client doing this, nor have we ever triggered an anxiety attack. As a matter of fact, deep breathing through the straw is a wonderful way to calm anxiety. So, your job is going to be to exhale, and this is universal symbol for breath is leaving the straw, and this is universal symbol for breath is entering the straw, all right? And your other task is to put a hand on your belly and just monitor what your belly does as you are inhaling and exhaling. Got it? Okay, here we go. And I am going to do the counting for you, and you can exhale and inhale. Here we go, exhaling. 1, 2, 3, 4, and inhale. 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and hand on your belly and watch how it moves. Don't make it move, just let it be free. Beautiful. What did you notice about your belly as you breathed? And this is the group time to feedback to me. What did you notice about this? Anybody? It expanded as you inhale. Top marks for you. As we take in a full breath, this expands. And conversely, when we exhale, your belly went this way, right? And that's the way the body naturally moves when we are breathing for speech. We inhale, everything expands. We exhale, the abdominals engage. The abdominals manage the flow of air. If you've ever sung in a choir and you've heard breathe from your diaphragm, support from your diaphragm, support is the abdominal muscles managing the flow of the exhale. And we speak on exhaled air. So if I have a large, big thought that I want to communicate all the way to the back of the room, my abdominals really engage to manage the flow of air so that I have breath all the way to the end of the sentence. Yeah? Now, let's do the balloon and see what the balloon does for us. Stretch the balloon a little bit. Now, does anybody ever not blown up a balloon? There's always one who says, I don't blow up balloons. That's okay. Now, here in a minute, we are going to just blow up the balloon. Don't blow it up so big that it pops. Loud noises scare me, and it's not pretty. And you are going to, again, put a hand on your belly and just see what your belly does as you breathe in and as you exhale air into the balloon. You ready? At your own pace, not a contest, blow up the balloon and keep your hand on your belly. Off you go. Good, good. And you can just squeeze off the balloon, and I will tell you when you can release the air, all right? What did you notice about blowing up the balloon and the movement of your center? Anybody? It takes more force. Yes, it takes a moment for your abs to engage to understand what their job is. I am going to engage to help propel the air into the balloon. Now, as you were taking bigger and bigger breaths, did you notice that your center moved out more and more, and you also felt your ribs go this way? Yeah? When we inhale fully for speech, the belly moves out and the ribs expand, and it does it all by itself. And you reminded me that I told everybody I would tell you when you can release the air in the balloon. In any vile way that you like, you may release the air from your balloon. Oh, yeah. Excellent. We all become children in the presence of balloons. So this is just 2 exercises to help you understand about the breath. Let's do one more. Sit up nice and straight. And we are going to think about that deep breath. We're going to fill up our center with breath. And I want each of you, all together as a group, introduce yourselves. And it'll sound like this. Hello, my name is Rena Cook, and I'm so glad to be here today. That's your line. Hello, your name, and I am so glad to be here today on breath. Yeah? So take a nice breath deep into your center and speak. Brilliant. Now I'm going to add one more thing, and we're done with our lesson. I want you to really open your mouth. Yeah, the mouth is like the gatekeeper of our volume. And if I don't open my mouth very far, no matter how much breath I take in, it's not going to do me a lot of good. I also call the Oklahoma, Texas dialect Oklahoma lockjaw because the reason our vowels go like this is because we don't make space in our mouths. The vowels have to do that because we're not making enough space. The minute I open my mouth, my vowels sort themselves out, right? So now you are going to take that nice big breath where the belly moves out, and you are going to say your line, hello, your name, I'm so glad to be here, with a big open mouth. Off you go. Brilliant. Anybody notice anything different about their sound when we're breathing and opening our mouths? It's more clear. I love that. Anything else? Anything else? Yes, sir. Amazing. Enunciation issues take care of themselves when you actually open your mouth and support the sound with breath. So, there you have it. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. So we're going to pass around and ask Rena questions. We did want to just kind of depart from our normal presentation because as all of us who do presentations, it's really important to use your voice. So now we can ask Rena questions about her business. Or about anything else you'd like to ask?
Or a question you have about your own voice or the voice of someone you love.
Now they're all afraid to speak.
Yes.
Do you often work with a lot of other type of actors, such as those that would do in films or anything of that? And when you do you teach different types of accents?
Excellent question. What's your name?
My name is Paul Zielinski.
Hi, Paul. Yeah, I do a lot of dialects. So I teach dialects and I do dialect reduction. I teach actors if they need a British or an Irish, whatever, and I do that. I also, as I said, teach dialect reduction. If dialect is getting in your way, then I can help you clarify your speech so that it can be understood. I am ethically opposed to dialect eradication. I don't think everybody needs to sound like me, and I have been accused of sounding like an infomercial. So, no, not everybody has to sound General American. But if you are working in the business world, you need to be understood. And so I can help with that. And about screen actors, I teach a course called voiceover, which is essentially how do I use my voice when the microphone is this far away or when the camera is here. It's the same techniques, we just take down the effort level. I talk about effort on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 meaning no effort, 10 being your maximum effort. When I'm on the stage, I'm using 5, 6, 7, and 8 effort level when I speak. When I'm on the camera and the microphone is right here, I maybe use 3, 4, and 5. Does that help? Thank you. And did we sit next to each other at a thing? At the sales boot camp? Thank you so much. Okay.
So how are you acquiring your clients these days, and what do you see the future of your business in the next 5 years?
Well, you know, that's my biggest challenge right now is acquiring clients. A lot of energy is generated around the work, but the cash hasn't started flowing in yet. I do several networking and referral clubs. I have a website. I'm getting some brochures made. I'm contacting a lot of law firms who might have junior associates who need some litigation, storytelling. I follow up on any lead anybody gives me. So if anybody has any suggestions, I am certainly open. Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, I was going to ask, where do you see your business in 5 years?
Oh my gosh. Well, I want to be making a lot of money in 5 years. That was actually one of the drivers of the move from higher ed. You know that there's a ceiling on what you're going to earn as a college professor, and I'm hoping that through freelancing and marketing my business that I can raise that ceiling. And then, of course, the other reason is I just love this work and I want to bring it to as many people who need it. So in 5 years, I hope that I'm traveling and that I'm speaking and that I have a lot of individual clients and that I do weekend seminars, intensives, where you come to a beautiful spa and you indulge in breath and movement and voice and movement work for a whole weekend and come out a human being reborn. That's not too much, is it? Okay, other questions?
In addition to the voice training, do you do like body language coaching? Like when you're speaking, you have obviously the voice component, but the body says a lot too. How do you address that?
Oh, that's a wonderful question, Justin. Body work and voice work are infinitely connected, and the body has to be working well, freely, uninhibited by tension in order to communicate with the body. There are body language specialists, Deborah sitting right here, works with that as a specific subset of this kind of training. But when I'm working with confidence and presence and ease, body language must be addressed, particularly in the way of natural alignment. And then when the body is free, gestures that communicate meaning happen by themselves, as opposed to tension in the body releasing itself through gestures that don't communicate or even distract. Thank you, Justin.
I'm CJ Swanson, and
Hi, CJ.
thanks for sharing your gift. I was going to ask you, have you ever thought about helping Cancer Treatment Centers of America? Because when my parents were going, were getting treated in Illinois, they would do a lot of classes for the caregivers and also the patients on just skills that can make them be more empowered to face their fight.
I hadn't thought of that. And I would certainly be open to that kind of work, because I think that certainly the deep breathing and calms the spirit, calms the anxiety, and then reclaiming the voice after major illness, I think is an important part of the process. The thing that I would the balance that I need to walk is it voice training or is it speech therapy? And voice and speech therapy is a more scientifically based work, and they have a good deal more training in the field, a physical or a speech therapist, than I do. And so I wouldn't want to get into that area, but stay in my area of expertise of helping someone after an illness reclaim their voice. But that's a really good question. Thank you.
Good morning, Rita. I'm Mary Erb. And do you feel that, like, if a person eats wrong, they have a lot of phlegm, so they're always, having to clear their voices and throats? How do you play that into being a proper speaker?
Well, there certainly are drinks and food that cause phlegm. Chocolate, milk products. And we each have our own kind of lists of things that we know kind of give us phlegm. So as professional speakers, we learn to kind of eliminate or at least not eat those things or drink those things before we speak. The constant clearing of the throat is another issue. Clearing of the throat, let me demonstrate that, I didn't want to do it in the microphone, is really hard on your vocal folds. It really roughs up the edges of those very delicate vocal folds. And so I have several techniques that help people move the phlegm around without actually having to do that clearing of the throat. And for some people, the clearing of the throat is a nervous habit. They don't really need to do it, but they tend to do it, as a nervous tick. And they usually have pretty abrasive voices because they've roughed up the vocal fold edges. Or they did a lot of cheerleading. Other questions?
Rita, my name is Dick Rubin, and I'm glad to see you here today.
Thank you, Dick.
If someone wanted to retain you as a voice coach or as a trainer for just a small group of people, how much time would they need to budget to do that with, and how many dollars would they need to budget with so they get you have you do an effective job?
Well, I say to individuals that I need 10 sessions with them to help them find lasting change. And at this point, I charge $100 an hour. So it's $1,000 commitment from that individual. But the work I do is in the body training. You can read a book and understand what I say intellectually, but to get it in your body where you can actually do it and not have to think about it when you speak, it takes a minimum of 10 sessions. And as I told you earlier, I have some people that have worked with me for a year, and when I worked with acting students, over 4 years' time. With a group, I can do some pretty significant work in a weekend. And then I give them kind of a prescription for practice, and I have a CD that they can put in and do their vocal work with the CD, so that they can practice and practice and practice what we have learned together. So it would vary according to how much change you were after. I can change voices. But it does take time, and it takes a commitment on the part of the person. And at this point, I like to kind of think of $100 per working hour.
Do you work with people who are disabled or confined to wheelchairs, and how do you have to differ in working with them?
Well, I have, and I continue to really enjoy that work. When there is a physical disability of any kind, you just figure out how I can give them the most with what they have. There's a wonderful story about the movement trainer Alexander, and I'm sure you know this. He was someone who aspired to this ideal alignment without effort. And several of his students one day were trying to get him to say who does the best work. They wanted, am I your best student? Am I your best student? And a man who had clearly had polio as a child crippled by, and Alexander said, that's my best student. I'm like, well, how can that possibly be? Look at his alignment. He does the most with what he has. And so when I have the challenge of working with someone with a disability, I try to figure out how I can help them do the most they can within the limitations of their disability. And usually it's quite a bit more than they think they can. Thank you. Other questions?
Rena, I just wanted to say thank you. I mean, there's very few of these presentations that we actually get a lot of benefit from, so we got lots of tips today.
Oh,
so
thank you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Anything else? Yeah.
I'm Kathy Fox.
Hi, Kathy.
Thank you for being here. I think what I'm hearing a lot of people suggest are different types of customers that they're trying to help you broaden who you're appealing to.
Right.
And so I was just wondering if you had created a business model yet, if you'd really sat down and worked through a business model and all the steps of the business model. There are a lot of really talented people in this room that might be able to, afterwards, might be able to talk to you about helping you, because obviously you're an amazing subject matter expert. You obviously are passionate about what you're doing. Sometimes just that next step of turning that into a viable money-making machine you might just need a little bit of help putting some structure around that.
Absolutely, I do.
So I mean, I think it's great. That's kind of what we do here is we help people think, of different revenue streams, different customers you haven't tapped into yet, different marketing techniques. So there's a lot of really smart, creative people in this room you might just want to connect with.
Absolutely. I am
afterwards.
so open, and I realize that that's the next step for me, is to understand how to take what it is I know and do and turn it into a viable business. And I would welcome any input on that. And if anybody wanted to do some kind of trade, I'm really open to that. If one fellow I met here is a LinkedIn expert, and I'm like clueless, and he spent an hour with me on LinkedIn, and I'm going to speak an hour to his nonprofit about voice, and so that's a win-win. So I really welcome any of that feedback from you, either today or at another time, and I'll leave my business card here for anybody to take. And I really welcome the opportunity for growth.
Can I ask one more question? Okay, one more question, then
Sure.
we'll wrap it up. For those of us, can you speak quickly about maybe some stress management techniques that people can do? I find when I'm speaking, I don't generally get nervous, but sometimes, oddly, after I start, I get nervous. Or I know some people, before they begin to speak, they get nervous. Everybody's a little bit different, I think, some people don't get nervous at all. But for those of us that either have one of those two problems, either before or during, can you offer maybe just a few quick tips?
Yeah, I can. Deep breathing is the only way that you can volitionally control the fight or flight response, which is what we know as performance anxiety. And the only way to manage it is through breath. I started this morning knowing that I had a talk. I started deep breathing and yoga stretches as my warm-up today. And as I was driving here, I continued to focus on deep breathing so that my adrenaline never had an opportunity of getting out of control. So it's preparing the body and the breath for the stress thing and just keeping it under control. Another thing is, if your knees lock, it is going to keep you from breathing deeply, and it's going to enhance that fight or flight. I check in with my knees periodically and just go, soften. Yeah. And if within a speech I start to feel that rising, and it does, you go, oh God, what's next? I just go, okay, just breathe. And I let my belly expand. I teach my clients release. Release. And if you just think release, it releases the abdominal muscles so a deep cleansing breath can drop in. Yeah, so it's managing it before it sets in and being aware of the body once it does, releasing the knees and triggering the deep release of the breath would be the quickest. I do a whole thing on taming performance anxiety. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. Our final question is, what can the 1 Million Cups community do for you?
Well, I think that in your previous question, you addressed that specifically, and helping me to figure out how to turn what I do into a viable business. And any thoughts that you have on that, I would relish and welcome. And that's why I started coming here, and that's why I'll continue to come and support this group in any way that I can.
Great. Thank you, Rena.
Thank you.
And I am passing around.